Let's get into it. Dry Arabia, baby, let's go.
Whoop-de-doo, here we go. Puppypaw versus DeMusliMvs. Looks like we were lied to when it comes to civilizations. It is not French versus French. It's not even blue versus red. Someone deserves a spanking over here for going with the purple color.
Promises, promises, darling. It looks like we're going to have purple versus blue. Actually, I kind of like the English in the purple, actually. It's kind of different. This makes more sense, though. This is what I'd expect to see out of DeMuslim. Dry Arabia, he's one of, like, 2 players that I'd expect to pick the English here.
It's an interesting civilization matchup against the Mongols. Obviously, it's a tricky one to play because you're going to be slow all across the map. Your army isn't going to be super fast-moving unless you go for the DeMuslim signature of going Horseman. It wouldn't be unprecedented for him to go Abbey and Horseman. In fact, he's one of the very few people that have actually tried experimenting with that on Dry Arabia.
I feel like he does it less these days, though. He tends to still go for the the Council, and then he gives himself the option to get Lombos, right? And if he doesn't need them, he goes for a quick tech up. He usually likes to play condensed for it as well. DeMuslim's the type of player who actually more frequently has been going for a second TC before Castle Age. I think you could get away with it in this game strictly because of how well defendable your location is due to the forward lines.
Yeah, indeed. And the other thing is that there's always the looming threat of the Mongol pushing you with some spearmen going for a tower drop on you. Even though you probably don't want to do that against the English, if you have some spearmen supporting, you could actually flirt with the idea. But the point is, you don't really want to go for English horsemen over here, even if you like the idea of it, because the Mongols have a pretty high probability of having some spearmen on the field, or worst case scenario, their own horsemen.
Yeah, and I actually think that DeMuslim can get away with greed this game because of Puppypaw's opening. He started with the pasture, which means it's less likely he's going to feign aggression. That's just 150 wood investment into economy instead of military. Does make sense considering you can't build spears against the English, but he did have the option to go for horsemen. The reason he probably didn't is because of how much more pricey those horsemen are compared to spears.
Yeah, the Muslim actually running into the Decisive over here. He's got to be careful.
Bruh.
Ooh.
Well, that's a freebie.
That's
cheap, cheap, cheap.
The only scout he had.
Dude, can we just acknowledge the way it's sheep at there? Like, owner goes down for 2 seconds, like, Daddy, no! And then all of a sudden, like, they change color, like, new daddy. Follow him afterwards. It's like mine is erased, grief is gone instantly. Like, what's is the Jeremy Clarkson one? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
That's
like,
exactly the one I was thinking. Yeah, that's exactly the one I was thinking about. Oh no. Anyway.
Oh dear. I love those adorable sheep. But anyway, does mean that DeMuslim ends up with a few less sheep, but that's not the big deal, right? You're the English, you can go farms anyway. The bigger deal is now you have no vision on the map or whatsoever.
Yeah, that's the scary part. And you have no idea what Puppypaw is doing. At least you scouted that there are no production buildings dropped just yet, so you won't be encountering early horsemen. There is no tower rush shenanigans here from the Mongol player, as you would expect. He might have even spotted the pasture, which at least should give him a clue that his opponent isn't going to go super aggressive at the beginning of feudal.
Well, looks like DeMuslim is going to, as predicted, go for that second TC. He loves this build, especially on Dry Arabia. Like I said, especially if he gets a defensive tree line, as in it functions as a forward defense, he'll take it. And this means he's going to play very condensed. He'll look to set up multiple farms. DeMuslim, actually, interestingly enough, tends to delay his wheelbarrow compared to other English players. I prefer this. I think we had a talk with Mr. on this, that he actually thinks that if you're going into farms, wheelbarrow is less value. And I do know that DeMuslim loves to go into farms super early with the English anyway. So it just makes a lot of sense.
Especially if you play 2 TCs and you want to play condensed, those farms make a lot of sense for you. It's not a massive investment for the English. It does have a pretty decent return rate. And a bigger thing is that you won't be reliant on map control almost at all. So you can play very condensed. And that eliminates most of the threats that Puppypaw could pose at you in feudal. Now, Puppypaw wants to go for improved survival techniques over here. Hello there. Bit of a hunting coming up for a Mongol player.
I love this. He's going to get the hunt for free. There's going to be no aggression from the English, and it's pretty obvious to him. What I love, actually, is Puppypaw and Wham probably deviate with their tech ups the most out of most Mongol players. Like, I've seen, for example, improve forestry a lot, improve survival techniques. They actually do a lot of kind of these off-the-cuffs type styles with the Mongols. I think they have reaped a lot of benefits from doing so.
Looks like Council Hall just now finishing. He only built it with 2 villagers, so that's also a sign he's not rushing feudal. He just wants to get as many resources as he possibly can, so he can drop the town center straight away.
Okay. This is different for DeMuslim. He occasionally does deer, but I think this is more lessons on the ladders recently. I've noticed a few players who've been practicing this build. The whole idea is you play deer, so it inflates you towards castle, and then you transition farms. It actually gives you a more optimal timing. Love this detail from 1Puppypaw, though, shoving the deer away to minimize value from DeMuslim.
And those deer have been pushed away really far, actually, so that is great work. Like, those 2 deer carcasses are almost useless for DeMuslim right now, being so out there.
Yeah. I think, actually, the funny thing about the English is they are probably the civ that needs value out of a TC placement the least, right? Like, if you think of all the civs in the game, the English are probably the one that could kind of shrug their shoulders and just drop a TC a few tiles away and then build farms between. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get value. Like, you shouldn't look for value. And, well, talking of TCs, 1Puppypaw already knew what was up, and he goes for a second TC himself onto that deer stack and improved survival techniques. This is going to be a brilliant open for the Mongols.
I love the new dimensions that 1Puppypaw is opening with the improved decks. So many times you see the Mongols just going for either the double production in feudal or just the good old-fashioned tower rush, maybe even arrow slits type of play with the Mongols. But given the fact that he's not doing any of that, in fact, both players are playing a very greedy build, what 1Puppypaw is doing is that he's using essentially a significant portion of his stone that he has gathered just to get those key improved decks. In fact, I'm actually wondering whether he has gotten something like improved forestry as well, so that he can get the second town center up really fast. But improved survival techniques is also quite appealing here. Let's check.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't expect it, just because if you look at his stone, you can see he's got way too much stone hoarded up.
Yeah.
But they do occasionally do this improved forestry build. I think it depends. Wait, Wolf.
Whoopsie-doo.
What?
You gotta make up your mind, boys.
Well, it's because you want the improved text, right? I think you forgot about it. Whoops. So move out now. But yeah, just back to what you're saying. Like, I've seen Wham. I think Wham was one of the first players I saw doing improved forestry. When Woodwall got introduced, he was scrimming it. And he's trying to innovate that into some altai builds as well. 1Puppypaw with the improved survival techniques is getting a lot of success as well. But the thing about the forestry, I think someone done the maths. Like, there's an argument that it's not worth it because it doesn't, like, improve your TC timing. That's not the goal of it. It's whether you need a lot of wood in your build. If you need a lot of wood, it's worth going for.
Yeah, but here the point obviously was that he just wanted the second TC, and probably it wasn't worth the stone investment because as much as he got improved survival techniques, he's still banking up a lot of stones. So when he reaches Castle Age, he can double produce knights and men-at-arms for quite a while.
Exactly that. It comes down to what your win condition is in the matchup. Improved forestry is really good in longer games, but you don't want a longer game against the English, right? You're playing a disadvantageous matchup in that situation. So going for forestry, like by the time it pays for itself, you're probably into Imperial Age, which means you've just kind of conceded a stronger early point to allow DeMuslim to reach his strong point.
DeMuslim popping out a couple of longbows over here might be spotted by 1Puppypaw. This is crucial information because 1Puppypaw is about to go up to Castle Age. If he misplaces his step redoubt, he could easily get caught off guard because his gold mines are quite far away from the initial TCs.
Stables also been prepped for 1Puppypaw. You know, that tech up is very close to Muslim, nowhere near yet because, of course, he'll be in the middle of that farm transition. Did also invest into Longbow Spear. Problem is, like, where these Longbos and Spears strike? And are they going to be quick enough? Because I think the step readout might come up before they wrap round. And at that stage, there's limited damage you can do.
DeMuslim knows what he has to do here. If you're afraid that the Mongol player is going castle, you gotta hit the gold mine. That's probably where he's placing his step readout at. And this could be scary for 1Puppypaw, actually.
Just gonna get eyes on due to the Gur, though. The Gur's gonna give the early heads up. The scouting vision is limited for DeMuslim. Looks like he should be able to wrap in, though, and that's gonna heavily delay him. 1Puppypaw has to back away. Cancels it without hesitation. Realizes he was way too gluttonous with this play.
Yeah, beautiful timing out there for DeMuslim. He really felt like something was going on, and 60% of that Castle Age progress had to be cancelled over here. Bit of a panic now kicking in for 1Puppypaw, so dropping a tower. He's still going to beat his opponent to Castle Age, but his Castle Age advantage is going to be much smaller than what it could have been.
Yeah, but you can see that DeMuslim, outside of that slight delay, is kind of struggling to find value, and at that stage you have to kind of argue whether he'd done enough here, because he did build 18 military units. And those Longbos are 90 each, so that's almost 1,000 on Lombos alone. Then there's the Spearmen on top of that, which are 80 resources. That this adds up. Like, this is basically the cost of a tech up.
Well, he killed the Khan, so he can't be disappointed.
Yeah, he took out a king. I mean, there you go. Sadly, this king doesn't have a loot box that you can loot. So,
So you say that you can't just take the loot box out of the Khan's body and unlock new skins with it.
yeah, just for anyone who becomes a murderer in real life, so they're not surprised when it doesn't work that way. When you kill someone and you reach inside them, you don't get valuable things unless you know someone that works on the black market trading in organs.
I really don't feel like getting the channel banned 2 days before the puppy is released is a good idea, KP.
Look, I'm not telling you how to get the organs out, but it's a good idea to get a sharp knife and then go in from the side. Try not to damage the tissue. That means that it's going to be worth more when you get it onto the market. Anyway, looks like Step Readout is in good position. Outposts are up as well, and it means that DeMusliMvs' army is quickly going to become a throwaway.
Yeah, it is a throwaway. You just try to deny the gold mine here, because you know you're gonna be up against premium units, especially because PuppyPaw was barely spending his stone. You know that you're gonna be facing mass men-at-arms and lancers very soon, so you just try to buy yourself some time. Like, idle the villagers here is a decent value for those longbows, or at least you won't be getting any more than that right now.
And the good news, at least for DeMuslim, is he keeps his opponent on the defensive. And you saw the reaction. PuppyPaw didn't actually prep the Lancer straight away. He went for men-at-arms instead. This slightly stagnates his timing. It means that DeMuslim will get a little bit more wiggle room and shouldn't be harassed straight away upon arrival in castle.
Yeah, that's gonna buy him some time, and indeed men-at-arms will take some time. Also, not a unit that you really want to go for very heavily against the English, because English will be more than happy to just match you with their own men-at-arms, and the Muslim looks like he has no desire to play infantry anymore. He wants to play the Knights game.
Yeah, something to kind of hit on with that men-at-arms idea is the difference, of course, between the Muslims and PuppyPaws is that one is fat and one is not, right? Yeah, the chubby boy can take more of a beating, but also the slimmer moves faster, right? That's the difference, as Yam can really break that matchup. It means that PuppyPaw going for men-at-arms, especially as a defensive unit, is still quite functional.
But they won't be able to do that much damage out there. You see, they're barely about to reach the Muslim's base, and the Muslim is already going for textiles out there, so he knows he's gonna face some level of aggression, and these men-at-arms being as slow as they are without the Yam boost, they will struggle to kill many villagers.
Yeah, am I the only one who feels like when we zoom out and look at men-at-arms, they kind of look like they're actually dwarfs from the Lord of the Rings universe? They're very slow, right? But they're kind of, it looks like they've got tiny legs. But Lancers are not tiny and are not slow. These guys are, but these ones are in. And that harassment is going to be annoying because it means the Muslim's going to be stuck in his own base reacting to the raids instead of productively going about his own.
Yeah, on the other hand, though, the Muslim has a third DC up with the King's Palace, so unless PuppyPaw can consistently start chipping away with villager kills, he's going to be behind in terms of economy. Good damage done here on the gold miners, though, but so far PuppyPaw fails to kill villagers. He's just idling the eco.
The Muslim likes purple because it's actually more royal.
True.
You know that, right? Like purple was the kind of symbol of royalty because it was the hardest color to dye.
Yeah. Didn't they get it from, what was that? Some sea creatures, I think. It was the Phoenicians invented the technology, that's all I know.
Yeah, I know. I was about to say, I know it comes from it. Like it was mainly imported from Italy, but I'm not sure what the origins were beyond that.
It was a Phoenician invention, and it comes from some sort of sea creature. So you fish it, and then I think you have to kill that. So poor little weird sea creature gets killed, and he gets turned into purple paint.
Yes, it's a Phoenician purple dye. I think it like goes back to the Roman days as well, right? That was the earliest point where it was used.
Phoenicians were sooner than that.
Yes, but I mean like in terms of Western like society,
yeah,
like,
true.
What we related to, and then it kind of followed through from that. I like how we turned into kind of a interesting facts history channel. Just a few knights clashing, guys. You're not really missing anything. There's not really going to be a quick swing in these fights as it stands. I mean, the knight escalation is going to be more or less even for the next several minutes. It's the transition that comes next that matters.
And for the time being, both of them are just picking up relics over here. Preemptive Wololo nicely pushing away the knights from DeMuslim. Knight numbers equalizing now. The big difference is that DeMuslim is going to operate with more spears,
Wait.
whereas for 1Puppypaw, he's going for crossbows.
Did I hear a Wololo go off somewhere?
Ah,
I'm pretty sure I heard a tong.
there could have
But
been a
where?
second Wololo. 1Puppypaw has a second relic in hand.
Where? The people need to know.
Ooh. you are putting Vodka into a tough position over here, trying to find a monk carrying a relic.
Who cares? Clearly wasn't that important, or we would have found it by now. I swear I heard it, though. Maybe I'm just going crazy. All right, now, 1Puppypaw is going to go crazy, rip his hair out in his own base. The raids finally reach his side of the map. Numbers clearly in favor of DeMuslim as well, because 1Puppypaw chose to go into that greed. Of course, he's going to reap the relics as a result, but what is going to be the price back at home? Because one big issue you have is when you play the Mongols, everyone knows where to find your food. It's always underneath that TC.
Yeah, it's a very condensed base, a lot of damage potential over here for DeMuslim. He also has a decent amount of knights here. Defense arrow pops for Khan. You do have some crossbows on the field, though, to pick off those knights with, and this is a suboptimal trade, actually, for DeMuslim.
The problem is, like, DeMuslim, while it seems suboptimal, he's idling eco and he's building a lead further, right? That's the thing you have to think about. As long as he holds at home, it's good, but you might struggle to hold at home against this many lancers coming in, especially with how fleshed out he is on his farms. It's going to be a lot of exposed eco and not much room to keep it safe.
He's got the attack aura, he's got some spearmen out there as well, and some of those lancers are battered for 1Puppypaw, so this might be easier to hold than it seems. He can also afford to lose a couple of villagers. He's up by 23, so this is not as bad as it looks for DeMuslim right now. He did lose his attacking army, but back at home, looks like he's barely suffering from any damage.
Exactly, that's my point. Like, he doesn't care about the army being thrown away because of where it's thrown away. It's keeping half of 1Puppypaw's effective firepower out of the equation, because instead of being across the map with crossbows already, 1Puppypaw was defending in his own base.
Yeah, this escalation is getting worrisome for 1Puppypaw. It is going to be 3 versus 2 relics, so no massive advantage there for Puppy. There's going to be a good defensive keep here, helping to protect the base of DeMuslim. And he's set up well with the farming eco. This is where the late game English start to kick in, up to 1,500 food per minute, ready to start pumping out those knights in big batches.
Yeah, good. We should emphasize good defensive keep as far as Dry Arabia goes, because there's no such thing as a good defensive keep in Dry Arabia.
I mean, yeah, you work with what you can, right? Given the circumstances, that's a good
boy,
keep.
Right? Yeah, unless you're corner boy, unless you build into the corner of the map, it's very difficult to get a good keep placement with just one. But the whole point more is the forward defense, so it stops the shortest route for 1Puppypaw to get to the English base, but then it also allows him to get network of citadels.
Yeah, that's the bigger thing. Stonewall's coming up here. He really wants to make sure he doesn't get raided. Makes a lot of sense. That's going to solidify his control over the right side. Also secure a lot of space at the back for him.
I just think the problem that you're having right now for DeMuslim is this Lance account isn't really being directly addressed, and you know you're not going to get to fight it directly, and you're kind of seeing what could be the weakness of the English and Dry Arabia. You spread your base out wide, even when you try to play condensed, because of how many farms you need, and
I think
cavalry will just exploit that.
the bigger thing is that you spread your base out very soon because of those farms.
Yes.
Many civilizations transition to farms later, so you have a little bit more time to build up your numbers or build up your walls.
Looks like DeMuslim is going to be back on the aggressive to try and offset that issue of not really having any walls in place. He's going to clash in this area. Attack speed arrow is going to come out from 1Puppypaw, which means we get good trades taking out the knights. A nice wrap around there. 1Puppypaw on point with the micro. DeMuslim, sleepy go bye-bye time for the longbows. Enough spears to try and respond to the backside. The crossbows more or less cleaning house as well. Villagers are going to be exposed at the end of this, though. That's the bigger issue, because 1Puppypaw does not have enough troops here to defend.
Yeah, this is a fight that DeMuslim has to be more than happy with, and wraparound from the Knights were really good, and they will eventually finish off all of those longbows, but the damage is being done here. 1Puppypaw did lose villagers, a lot of idle time on him, and while he is doing some counter raids on DeMuslim's base, that gap in the eco is increasing more and more.
I mean, the problem here is, like, you clean up the English again, but once again, you don't do enough eco damage in response, and they're escalating, right? The goal for DeMuslim long-term is to reach Imperial off of you fighting in your own base with more than half your army.
Yeah, indeed. For now, DeMuslim doesn't have the resources for him, though. He's just sitting at 130 food, still just mass-producing knights. He doesn't want to get caught off guard by a counterattack by 1Puppypaw, but if he keeps mining stone and goes for a second keep, he might actually have a good enough defensive position to try going Imperial.
He's gonna go for the stone walls. I prefer this. Like, PuppyPaw doesn't have any interest in siege, so why would you bother with keeps, right? Like, you're just giving the opportunity for knights to sneak by. This is actually much better and criminally underrated for the English in these type of situations.
And it's difficult. The thing here is that even if you make sieges PuppyPaw, it's difficult to push the English. You'll be up against a network of citadels, something that DeMuslim hasn't finished researching yet. But we have seen yesterday in the WAM versus Recon set that even if you have twice the amount of springholds to the Mongols, it's difficult to push the English because their springholds are so effective with that buff.
Yeah, it's just the way they kind of lure you in as well, because eventually they get into trebuchets, showering projectiles. All of a sudden, you can't really trade out, even with improved shot triggers. So definitely not a situation you want to be going neck and neck into Imperial Agent. You want to try and come at it from an advantage if you're PuppyPaw. The problem is right now, he's not really seeing that advantage. In fact, look at the eco. It's looking a lot better for DeMuslim now.
Yeah, he does. And he's got a lot of space back at home to just build up more farming eco. He's going to expand with towers as well. And this farming eco is well set up. Almost 2,000 food per minute. Compare that to what PuppyPaw has, an underwhelming 800 only. That is a big difference when it comes to the food department.
That's because PuppyPaw is playing pocket ecos. Like, it's the right call in this situation, but it's hurting you long-term now because you're reacting to berries, right? You're not just playing deer and boar. In fact, he's ignoring the boar still. And this means you're playing on berries, which are just simply inferior to the sheep you could be having safely at home.
Yeah, it looks like DeMuslim is now flirting with the idea of going into Imperial, still adding some army, but as you see, he's starting to bank up resources here for Imperial. He's got the stone wall set up too, so he's going to have a very strong defensive position. I think he's going to keep this central part open, though. He just wants to funnel every single unit in that direction.
Absolutely. I think he's gonna pop cap first. He's not gonna rush Imperial in that regard.
Oh, he actually walls the middle too.
I mean, it's just like you can just build a wall afterwards, gate afterwards, what do you do? But yeah, realistically, you could have kept a choke point. It's just guarantees that PuppyPaw has to go siege. We can see that now coming in the mangoes and trebs, but in an effective way, this is even better for DeMuslim because now PuppyPaw is side investing into siege instead of teching up himself, and DeMuslim in the next 2 minutes could have Imperial.
And the big thing here is that, as you said, PuppyPaw has to invest in traction trebuchets, units that won't do anything in these straight-up battles on open field.
Oh, trying to force a clash in the meantime. Limited number of front line for PuppyPaw, but lack of mangonels from DeMuslim means he doesn't have a clear answer to crossbows. Lombos will have to do. He's going to sacrifice a lot of knights in the equation, though. He hasn't got the aura up yet. It's only on one side. The Yam for the Mongols is activated, but the attack speed aura not for the English. I'm trying to fix that with an outpost going up. The problem is with trebuchets here, it seems impossible. So DeMuslim will have to back away.
Yeah, he's going to fall back over here, but this was just a decoy. He just tried to cover his Imperial with this. He's been banking up resources. He just wanted to make sure that PuppyPaw is busy defending. Now, there is no gate here for the army to fall back through with. So, bit of a misplay out there, but there is the Wingard Palace, and he's shielded by all those walls. You do have 2 traction trebuchets here for PuppyPaw, but it's going to take quite a lot of time for him to just eat his way through those walls, and that's going to buy enough time for DeMuslim to get to Imperial. From that point on, he really unlocks the late game power of the English with enclosures. He's going to have the shattering projectiles for the trebs, and he's going to be able to just start getting the real value out of those longbows, the volley upgrade, the elite upgrades. That's where it gets really spicy.
It's actually crazy when you think about how effective walls are against the Mongols. You know, it's not just the whole idea of haha you can't raid anymore. Right? It's in a battle situation, right? Like you just highlight those trebuchets. You can break the walls, but there's more walls next to them. Why is that important? Well, especially against the English, they can just stand on the walls. Lombos will reign supreme with night tower range, and the arguable counter to that is that I can run melee units on the wall. But think about what Mongols build right now. Their comps are typically crossbows and knights. They actually don't have anything to run on the walls and attack whatever's standing on them directly.
Speaking of running on the walls, Longbows might do just that over there.
What are the traction traps doing? A little bit too close here. I mean, honestly, I don't know why it's this close. Like, DeMuslim goes to the walls, he could be in trouble. Whoops,
Overchop on the left side. Oh, the flooding could commence.
It's a thin choke point, though. I'm not sure how deep you want to go into this. Outpost now being built up in reaction to it. Tech up is now complete. So DeMuslim needs to get value out of the in-page. Enclosures, of course, being researched will come through soon. Horsemen also being prepped to counter out the mass crossbows. Though the Lancers are in, with limited numbers, they can do limited damage here. And a choke point like that is something PuppyPaw will have to think twice about walking through.
And the Mangonels are ignored. Horsemen can snap away
freebies.
with the Mangonels.
Yes, the Horsemen are just in. That's their freebie in the trade. Not much that you can do to instantly react to that from PuppyPaw. He knows he's eventually going to lose the Mangos, but the Trebs in the meantime will get rid of the keep. So now he can make his way in. DeMuslim forfeiting a lot of ground, all of a sudden lacking military to hold, and you can see the desperation when he starts to queue the Wingard Raiders.
And that's the big thing here, right? The Vols would have held long enough for him to make the transition to something that deals with the crossbows, but the Vols, they were irrelevant because there was an overchop, and suddenly an army is marching into his base, trebuchets rolling up, Mangonels as well, and it is a 77 army versus 28 situation here, KP.
The tough one is it just felt like DeMuslim didn't prep a second army behind this. Like, he threw away an army in a very questionable way, considering that he didn't have enough to replace it instantly, and now you're seeing the impact of that. Him going for Wingard Raiders seems kind of throwy, but I know he likes doing this. DeMuslim's done it multiple times in this situation. Do not underrate the power of hand cannoneers here, especially against PuppyPaw's configuration. Thing that is going to matter most, though, is whether you can get rid of those Mangos. If the Mangos stand, the entire army of DeMuslim will fall.
He needs a standing army here, so the Wingard army by itself with the trebuchets, that is almost worthless for him. He just needs numbers, so Wingard Raiders indeed make a lot more sense for him. He does have an intimidating force of horsemen now, up to 18, and that is his tool to snap those Mangonels with, and then he could take a good fight.
Big boys want to be let loose. Wingard's starting to come out. Mangonels are moving in, trebuchets as well on that Wingard pass. It's kind of in a position where it'll be the next thing to go down, so you won't even get the quantitative solution.
Oh, the Mangoes!
Though, mistakes made, PuppyPaw! What?
Oh, the Miss Micro. That's gonna be painful. Mangonels taken down so easily. Towers have no weapon emplacements on them, so it's an easy overrun right now for the Muslim.
I am at a loss right now, and so is PuppyPaw. I mean, that may have just thrown the game. That actually did just throw the game. This is going to be the beginning of a snowball. Like, his whole army is going to get cleaned up. He has no quicker way of replacing, and he's now playing an entire age behind because of that whoopsie daisy, because of the fact he didn't pivot right to defend that.
Oh, that is going to hurt so much. As you said, this army is trapped in here, will be cleaned up by the longbows and the horsemen, and from that point on, the Muslim needs to hold a single choke point, something that the English are so proficient in, and he's playing from a position of advantage. One age up over his opponent, having a much better eco now.
And the crazy part is there was a risk that, you know, you can say to Muslim like he's eventually going to get an army together. Yeah, but he would have had to have kept throwing away armies to deal with PuppyPaw's force they dove. Instead, DeMuslim managed to get the trade out without throwing away an army, which is why when you look at the pop cap count now, he's got double plus on the military pop cap compared to PuppyPaw. This is pretty much done. I mean, PuppyPaw won't call GG straight away. It's a match point game, but it's very difficult to see a remotely feasible way back in for PuppyPaw. He's teching up. That might be his redeeming factor, but keep in mind, by the time he completes that tech up, the Muslim can be in his base.
And the moment he sees the tech up, he's going to dive in. Especially given the fact that PuppyPaw only has 23 army on the field. Most of that are actually traction trebuchets and Mangonels. Only 7 knights and 7 crossbows on the field for PuppyPaw. The moment that Imperial Age completes, PuppyPaw is gonna just get shredded.
The white stupa location. He couldn't even build it up subtly. GG comes out. DeMuslim holds strong, turns fiercely in the blink of the eyes, and takes the series 2-1 to pip PuppyPaw at the post.
Got a little scary out there for the Muslim when those crossbows flooded in, but as you said, losing those Mangonels so easily just sealed the deal there. The Muslim, he was sitting behind those stone walls conveniently, going up to Imperial, and once he got rid of the Mangonels, it was a cleanup and then a snowball. Even if PuppyPaw reached Imperial, it would have been an impossible hold for him, but with the Dwight Stupa being exposed, this was a no-brainer for him to tap out from, and the Muslim takes down PuppyPaw in a 2-1 fashion.